Welcome back, everyone. We're diving deep today, and this one's kind of personal for me. It's about how pain and hardship, how they can actually lead us to a sense of purpose.
That's a powerful concept. Definitely not always easy to wrap your head around, though, is it?
No, not at all. That's why we're turning to a powerful piece called From Pain to Purpose, Journeying to the Promised Land. It's packed with wisdom from those ancient biblical stories and teachings.
Yeah, those stories never get old. They're full of, timeless truths, I think.
Right. So much to unpack there. And the piece starts with the Israelites. Remember their exodus from Egypt? Centuries of slavery.
Wow, yeah, talk about hardship. Hard to imagine going through something like that.
For sure. But that's exactly the point, right? It's like that shared experience of suffering. It actually forged their identity as a people, a nation.
Exactly. It was the crucible, you might say, where they were refined. And in their yearning for liberation, that paved the way for their eventual freedom.
Right. And then there's that powerful line from Exodus. The Lord will fight for you. You need only to be still.
Wow, that's something, isn't it?
It is. Especially when we think about how it applies to us today.
Yeah, because, we're not facing literal slavery, are we? But we all go through tough times. We feel stuck, lost, like maybe trapped by our circumstances or even, our own bad choices.
Absolutely. So what's the message for us in that Exodus verse then?
Well, it's about surrendering control, trusting that even when we feel powerless, there's something bigger than ourselves at work. And yeah, it's definitely easier said than done, but it reminds us that those moments of constriction, those dark times, they can actually be the catalyst for incredible growth, like a spring being compressed,
I like that analogy. Like it's building up that potential energy for something amazing to happen.
Okay.
And that ties in with, what about Joseph's story? Talk about an underdog tale.
Oh, for sure. Betrayal, slavery, false accusations. That guy went through it all.
But he didn't just survive. He thrived.
Yeah.
Became a leader. Forgave his brothers. It's pretty incredible.
And what gets me, it's his statement in Genesis. You intended to harm me, but God intended it for good.
Wow. God intended it for good. But does that mean, every bad thing that happens is part of some divine plan? I struggle with that.
Yeah, it's not about blaming God or saying he orchestrates suffering. That's not it at all.
So what's it about then?
It's more about, I think, realizing that even in the midst of pain and confusion, even when it makes absolutely no sense, there's potential for something good to come out of it. It's about trusting that God can work through anything, even the most painful things, to bring about something we never could have imagined.
Okay, I can see that. It's like looking back on a tough time and realizing, hey, it actually led me to something better. Something good came out of it that wouldn't have happened otherwise.
Yeah, exactly.
But what about, the really devastating stuff? Things like, the crucifixion of Jesus. Where's the good in that?
That's where this idea of pain leading to purpose is really tested, isn't it? The crucifixion, it's the ultimate example of suffering.
It is.
But it's also the foundation of, Christian faith. The belief is that through Jesus' sacrifice, humanity was given the promise of salvation, eternal life, the ultimate promised land.
Right, and there's that verse in Hebrews, fixing our eyes on Jesus, the pioneer and perfecter of faith. For the joy set before him, he endured the cross, scorning its shame. I gotta admit, that one's always been kind of tough for me.
It's deep, that's for sure. It's calling us to look beyond the immediate pain, to believe in the possibility of a joy so great that it makes everything else pale in comparison.
Okay, we can talk about this pain leading to purpose thing, but what does it actually look like for someone who's struggling right now? In the thick of it?
That's where Romans 8.28 comes in. And we know that in all things, God works for the good of those who love him, who have been called according to his purpose.
Yeah, okay, but what does it actually mean for someone who's, really hurting?
It's a reminder that even when we don't see the way forward, even when things feel absolutely hopeless, God is working. It's about holding on to that sliver of faith, trusting that something good can emerge from the ashes of our pain.
And that's the hard part, isn't it? How do we hold on to hope when everything just feels hard?
Yeah, it is. And it's not about pretending everything's okay or just stuffing down our pain. It's about acknowledging our struggles, bringing them to God and really believing that he's bigger than our circumstances. It's about searching for those glimmers of hope, those little moments of grace, even in the darkness.
I think what I'm taking away from this is that pain, well, it's not the end of the story. It can be a starting point for growth, for transformation, for finding a purpose we might never have found otherwise.
Exactly. It's about shifting our perspective, moving away from asking why me, and instead asking what now? How can we take this experience, this pain, and use it to learn, to grow, to become more resilient, more compassionate, more aligned with the purpose that God has for us?
Powerful stuff. So as we wrap up this deep dive, is there one thing you'd want our listeners to really ponder?
I'd say think about a time in your life when you faced a challenge, something that seemed absolutely impossible to overcome. But in the end, it led to something good. Think about how that experience shaped you and how it might influence the way you face challenges today. Remember, that promised land, whatever that looks like for you, it's always within reach. Just keep moving forward with faith and trust that even your pain can be a path to purpose.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We'll be back next time with another exploration.